First programme in a series of 6 is Songs for Dove by the English composer Michael Tippett. The piece is a metaphor for the dilemmas facing the artist, any artist, at various stages of his or her creative life, and at this stage in our history. Songs for Dove was written in 1972, and the music of the other 5 programmes has been written subsequently. The most recent, John Adams's opera Nixon in China, in 1987. When I started to plan this second series of Sinfonietta, I chose the 6 pieces in the first instance because they appealed to me very strongly, and because they were all recent, very much of our own times, and so inevitably I thought they would raise questions about our time. I always knew that Songs for Dove would be the subject of the first programme, and that each of the films would examine how a composer writing now finds a voice, both for himself and for the time in which he lives and creates. And so, in presenting Michael Tippett's song cycle and the questions it raises, I'm going to refer, when it's appropriate, to the other works and composers featured in this series. And interestingly, this will parallel Dove's journey west around the world, because the composers themselves come from Britain, Michael Tippett, West Coast America, John Adams, Japan, Toru Takemitsu, Soviet Union, Alfred Schnittke, Poland, Witold Lutosławski, and Germany, this last, Hans Werner Henze, with an exile in Italy. Dove is a character, a young musician from Tippett's third opera, The Knot Garden.
If anybody, I'm Dove, because Dove was the singer, and he had to learn what it was as a very young man to find his way to when he sang, as I felt, for his generation, or to the world at large.
In Songs for Dove, this maker and singer of songs, the creative artist, goes on a journey of discovery to find out not only his own voice, but also a voice for all humanity. And in this effort to find out who he is, to gain the rounded experience which the mature artist needs, Dove travels westwards round the world. It's the old idea of go west, young man. In other words, exercise the imperative of youth to make your dreams come true.
So the first thing you hear in Songs for Dove is this cry. Bow wow! And it's the cry of all humanity at the present time, which he has to accept into himself. And then he sings, and he does it again, and he sings, and he begins to travel.
Well, what is this cry for humanity, and how can it be stilled? In the first song, Dove is the young romantic dreamer, full of illusions, anxious to transform routine existence, where imagination, the inner world, is stifled and dreams repressed. A home without a garden, he calls it. To transform it into an idealized pastoral, the warm south, the golden Californian west, or, to use a more literary image, the fabulous rose garden. And the ballad he sings is a vivid mix of sounds and verbal images, both from Europe and from North America.
I was born in a big town, in a home without a garden. scrape the sky. Play it cool, come with me to the warm south, or the golden Californian west. Come with me to the warm south, where the palm trees grow so mighty tall. Boy, tall enough to shade us all. Play it cool, play it hold, our fleeting youth forever. Oh, stop, stop, stop the world. I want to get off. Oh, honey, honey, make love to me now. Oh, boy, now play it cool. The fabulous Rose Garden.
Both the American John Adams and the Japanese Toru Takemitsu travelled west, one quite literally and the other stylistically, but each to free his imagination. Adams went from East to West Coast America to get out from under the dead weight, as he saw it, of the European academic musical tradition. Takemitsu travels west in imagination towards European culture, which for him is exotic, his own fabulous rose garden. And for both composers, the journey represents a voyage to a dream world.
I am so concerned about Japanese garden because Of course, I love the Western Garden.
Yes.
Yes, very much. But there is some essential difference here between the Western Garden and the Japanese garden.
A garden never refuses you, says Toru Takemitsu. And for him, Western culture is a gigantic garden. And as a visitor to this garden, he feels free to move through it without inhibition, to take from it all the materials for his dream world. He's outside the culture, so he's able to look at it with fresh eyes. He doesn't find anything worn or hackneyed there. He picks and chooses and mixes at will. And out of it, as we'll see from his piece for piano and orchestra, River Run, he conjures the perfect dream world. As we shall see in John Adams, transforming the routine into the extraordinary occurs particularly in Pat Nixon's aria from his opera Nixon in China, where Adams finds a voice for people who don't have a voice. Mrs. Nixon sings of the common shared feelings of ordinary Americans, which Adams in his setting transforms into something visionary.
And she soliloquizes about what it means to be an American. And there are images that I think are so striking. They're simple images, they're banal, and yet I think they're very touching. And it's a deeply moving vision of America.
Transforming the routine into the extraordinary occurs generally in Adams' music through a musical style of such wizardry that seemingly ordinary ideas are reinvigorated, transfigured, gloriously illuminated. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing, as Tippett's Dove will sing at a later stage in his journey. And here in Adams as the chairman dances is a celebratory dance to which we're all invited. Before Michael Tippett's second song for Dove, the howling is heard again. The cry of humanity has not been stilled, and Dove must move on. He leaves his youth behind and journeys in search of the experience that will bring about his artistic maturity, listening to things, experimenting, stealing. The dreams are still there, but so much more difficult to hold, as experience brings with it inevitable disillusionment. So as he travels, certainty is replaced by ironic awareness.
What does Dove say? And he knows that the world that he's growing up into, he has to sing to, is ironic. It is not as it was in the 18th century.
The song that results is a collage full of musical and verbal quotations, and with a strongly autobiographical feel. Through references to literary and musical masters of the past, Dove, the artist, is able eventually to find his own voice. In Tippett's case, the overriding musical reference is to his declared master Beethoven, from the opening direct quotation of Beethoven to the resonance of Beethoven felt in Tippett's own music.
As an artist, I'm not there to dictate your memories or anybody's in the audience, but I must do that operation, that gesture, that musical gesture which carries you into it. If it doesn't, then you get nowhere. Now, it's not, the quotation of Beethoven is only about 8 bars maximum. They're all terribly small, but they do their job, which is to take you into, if you like, into, whatever world I needed.
These are the worlds where Dove, the aspiring artist, learns his craft at the feet of the great masters. He comes eventually to understand that he can't literally do what they did, but having learnt from them, he goes off to do his own thing, to use his own voice in and for his own time. But of course he can't and won't forget those voices of the past. Tippett uses certain metaphors to exemplify Dove's gaining of experience and artistic awareness. First, the temptation of Beethoven's actual setting of Mignon's song by Goethe. Kennst du das Land, wo die Zitronen blühen? Know you the land where lemon bushes flower? And a little later, then Ariel's invitation to the dance, "Come unto these yellow sands," from Shakespeare's The Tempest, this time in Tippett's own setting. And finally, the alluring song of the sirens from Homer's Odyssey, the song which, if Ulysses heeded it, would bring death to him and his crew. After each encounter, Dove resists the blandishments of the past and journeys on to a refrain made up of various cliches symbolizing travel by land, sea, and air: the horse, the train, the plane, and the ship.
Hurry, hurry, hurry. The live horse, the iron horse, Pegasus, the flying horse, or that flying Dutchman, it's all one. Small looks like lightning, shines like gold. I'm off into the sunset. I'm on my Come unto these yellow sands. That's what the girl wants. Thrilling, skirling pipe. Sound, my flute. Ariel, I cry, sweet Ariel. Shall I hurry, 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 hurry to the island with the birds and beaches? Shall I? The live horse, the iron horse, Pegasus, the flying horse, or that flying Dutchman, it's all one. Small looks like lightning, shines like gold. Right off into the sunset. I'm on my That's what the canting witches say. Hari Hari to your meadow with the branching rose. Now stay my sheep, but shall I steal your song? Shall I?
The live horse, the iron horse, Pegasus, the flying horse, or that flying Dutchman. It's all one. Smokes like lightning, shines like gold, right off into the sunset. I'm on my
That is not what it really was. Now, we're not in the 18th century. We can't do that anymore.
And we can't do that anymore because the worlds of Beethoven, Shakespeare, Goethe, Homer, even Wagner are lost to us. There's a core of meaning from which we're exiled. The real pang, the real heartache, is that we can't return to the certainties, the verities that these great works represent, however much we would like to. And yet the dreams of Beethoven and Shakespeare, which were real enough to them and to their contemporaries, are so potent they still speak to us now. The past still communicates. We all live in the shadow of the great works of history. We refer to them. They're part of our experience. We're still moved by them. What we can't do anymore, and people often say, why can't we, is to write like Beethoven or Shakespeare. Because if we did, the results would be inauthentic and embarrassing. We can only recreate the past in our own handwriting.
Well, I'm a type of artist that likes to toy with styles. I can quote a style, I can do something in a certain style. What I never have yet managed is to take out my handwriting completely and make it completely anonymous and invisible.
That was the German composer Hans Werner Henze. Just as John Adams literally travelled to the golden Californian West, so Henze, like Goethe before him, literally went south to Italy, the land where the lemon bushes flower. And there, exiled from Germany, cut off from his roots, he has tried to find a voice to express his heartache. So the worlds he needed were the worlds of other hearts that ached. And those are the hearts of the defeated, the repressed, and the downtrodden, wherever they are. Henze's collection of songs, voices, from which that serenade comes, is a mix of many styles, a hybrid. In a sense, like Henze, we're all displaced because we're no longer rooted in one particular place or culture. For the first time ever, we have easy access to all places, to all cultures. And so we make ourselves up. We all become hybrids. which of us these days is not a mixture of styles? And this is what Hentz's voices, and in many ways all the works in this series, are saying. Between the second and third songs for Dov, there's no longer any need for Dov's howls of self-pity. He's now a grown man who knows that the uncertainties which were half hinted at in the second song are inescapable.
I saw a very nice documentary program on Yeats, who was a great love of mine. And I didn't know he'd ever did. Somewhere at the end of his life, he said somewhere, "I must sing out of the uncertainties." See? He knew by guesswork that these were there, though he had lived most of his life in certain illusory certainties.
To learn how to sing the uncertainties, Dov travels the last leg of his journey west through Russia. He visits the pastoral scene where Boris Pasternak sets the love affair between Dr. Zhivago and Lara before they move on to their ultimate and separate urban existences. As Tippett puts it, each alone into the swarming city. With this experience, Dov comes to realize that the creative artist must balance the ephemeral, the surface of life, and the eternal, the deeper questions about life we all have to face. There are only questions, no answers. And yet, the creative artist, in spite of this all-pervasive uncertainty, must sing. The third song is the song of mature awareness, whatever that is. And that seems to be what Tippett is saying. Artists can still make songs, but they remain unsure of the exact nature of their calling. And Tippett uses the figure of Dr. Zhivago as his personification of this dilemma. As an artist living in incredibly troubled times, Zhivago felt he should be producing a language appropriate to those times. The living language of our time is urban, he said. When it came to it as an artist, he produced something else altogether. Can the creative artist speak for the world, or is he only ever able to speak of himself in the world? Who knows? As Tippett says with heavy irony at the end of this song, "Sure, baby." And as he might have said, faced with this question,
I don't know. I can't answer this one.
By their home on my full circle west. By their home, the forest hut where they shacked up together. The snow, a
But they'd gone back to the town, each alone into the swarming city. To live your life is not as easy as to cross a field. Forest heart. As I passed by their home on my full circle west. I looked through the window and read the poem on the table. She was as near and dear to him in every feature. As the shores are close to the sea in every breaker. But they'd gone away back to the town. She first, he after, each alone into the swarming city. To live your life is not as easy as to cross a field. So talk that talk, walk that walk. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. So walk that walk, talk that talk. Lose we living language of our time is urban. So talk that talk, walk that walk. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. So walk that walk, talk that talk. Lutes we ain't got, but guitars aplenty. The living language of our time is urban. Sure, baby. Sure, baby. Why does the horizon weep in mist, and the dawn smell bitter? Surely it is my calling to see that the distances do not lose heart, and that beyond the limits of the tongue, the earth shall not Sure, baby.
Tippett's vivid image of modern urban existence, each alone in the swarming city, and Pasternak-Zhivago's The living language of our time is urban, are the essence of the double concerto by Witold Lutosławski, which is the subject of another programme in this series. Lutosławski seems to have considered this urban living and to have forged a language for this modern condition. Masses of human beings living as if alone in a vast urban environment, who are able to come together in some kind of mechanism to which, happily, we can give the name civilization.
First of all, the rhythm is incredibly rich and sophisticated as a sum of ad libitum played parts. Chance operations that give a performer of an ensemble the possibility of displaying his abilities, his talents, his initiative, his more free playing.
His concerto begins with a swarming mass of music, with each participant playing as if alone. Out of this, the composer and the players, as if in a drama, evolve a musical language which retains the uniqueness of their individualities, but suggests ways in which they can live together as a modern civilization. However, Lutosławski's music also suggests that this is only achieved with difficulty. Life is precarious, not at all easy. To live your life is not as easy as to cross a field. And this Russian proverb, which Tippett quotes in the third of Doff's songs, could easily stand as the motto at the head of the Viola Concerto by Alfred Schnittke. A real birth-to-death piece, this. It's the cry of humanity and the cry for humanity, pure and simple. This is how life is. Don't expect any answers. There are only uncertainties. But sing these uncertainties, for sing we must. As Michael Tippett asserts at the end of a more recent work, The Mask of Time, the singing will never be done.
Talk that talk, walk that walk. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. So walk that walk, talk that talk. Lutes we ain't got, but guitars aplenty. The living language of our time is urban.